to take a seat. So I just wanted to welcome everybody to the second day of the 2018 Australian Grains Industry Conference. My name's Georgie Ailey. I'm the Deputy Chair of Pulse Australia, and on behalf of our Chair, Ron Story, who sends his apologies, and the wider Board of Pulse Australia, we extend our warm welcome to all delegates to this year's conference. Pulse Australia is proud to co-host AGIC in conjunction with AOF and GTA. As the premier grains industry event, AGIC provides an opportunity to come together as an industry and examine where we've come from, while of course looking to the opportunities ahead. The pulse industry is a core component of the Australian broadacre cropping economy. In recent years, we've seen significant growth, not only in planted area and grower confidence in producing pulses, but this has also been supported by good prices and of course strong market demand. And Australia continues to cement its position as a leading supplier of high-quality pulses around the world. While 2008 has presented its challenges, and of course the season outlook is quite conservative, Pulse Australia remains focused on driving the long-term position of the Australian pulse industry. As many are aware, the pulse industry has faced issues related to tariff and import barriers in India in recent months, and on behalf of the sector, Pulse Australia worked actively with key counterparts in the market, DFAT, GMAF, and our members to minimise the immediate as well as the long-term impact of these decisions. And of course, India remains a key trading partner for the pulse industry. As we look ahead, Pulse Australia remains focused on ensuring a long-term strategy and outlook for the Australian pulse industry. We're working with GRDC to map this out, along with working with GRDC to provide immediate support around managing pulse production and quality challenges in our pulse growing regions. As a key industry player, Pulse Australia has remained committed to the ongoing dialogue and efforts relating to industry consolidation. We continue to work with the Australian Grains Industry Discussion Group as a mechanism to drive a more consolidated, efficient and modern platform for delivering industry good functions. And we look forward to continuing this dialogue over the course of the next year. Before I close, I wanted to take a moment to formally recognise Pulse Australia's Northern Industry Development Manager, a man by the name Paul McIntosh, who some of you may know. Paul was recently awarded the Queensland Grains Industry Leader of the Year for his services to the grains industry. And on behalf of the pulses and the broader grains industry, we extend our congratulations to Paul for his ongoing contribution to the sector. Additionally, I wanted to recognise our CEO, Nick Goddard, and his ongoing efforts on behalf of the pulse industry and, of course, in his function at AOF. While the current season presents some challenges, the long-term outlook remains bright for the pulses sector, and Pulse Australia look forward to working with members to continue to strengthen Australia's position in the global market. On behalf of Pulse Australia, I hope you enjoy today's discussion, and we look forward to welcoming you again in 2019. Thank you very much. And I'd like to just introduce Kevin from Gentech to kick us off with this morning's session. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Welcome to the morning after. So I'd like to just get everyone here to pass a vote of thanks to grain growers for their support of the excellent networking function last evening, and I'm sure that's why we haven't got half the room filled probably, but nevertheless, thanks are due to grain growers. It was an excellent function, and if you could join me in thanking them, thank you. Okay, so I'm Kevin Morphel here on behalf of Gentech Seeds. Many of you are probably not familiar with us as a newly formed organisation, even though we have been involved with the industry for many years. We're pleased to be here and continue our sponsorship and support of AGIC in 2018 into our fourth consecutive year of sponsorship. So we're pleased to do that. My colleagues and I welcome you to visit our stand outside to discuss our involvement and leadership in the Australian grains industry as a provider of world-class seed genetics and agronomic support services in partnership with many in the industry along the value chain. But you're not here to listen to me. This morning we have our excellent session 6 around facilitating trade. And we all know that self-regulation is a key focus of the Australian grains industry, and the panellists here this morning we'll go through those key elements of facilitating trade: technology and innovation, strategic partnership and collaboration, and stewardship. So I'm going to break from the normal tradition of reading the bios out. I've asked each of the presenters here this morning to give me one bit of unknown tidbits about their background. So initially I'm not going to attribute each of them to the speakers. I'll let them acknowledge which of the gems apply to them. So we have a Hawthorn supporter here. We have a tragic rugby fan. And we have someone who shared an admission with me this morning of being caught with trying to get 2 kilos of cocaine through Melbourne Airport. So I did warn you that it would be a break from tradition. Okay, now I'd like to welcome each of the 3 speakers, and I'll introduce them all to start, and then we'll go through their presentations and join a panel session with questions and answers afterwards. So we have 3 very experienced practitioners here across the public and private sectors, I quickly added up their years of experience, and we've on stage here got 65 years between them. So they can no doubt share a lot of that experience, and will this morning. So obviously the first one and closest to me is Pat O'Shannessy, CEO of Australian Trade Australia. Many of you don't need an introduction to Pat. The second one is Richard Perkins, General Manager of Market Check, and the third, furthest to my right, is Tim Fitzgerald from the Department of Home Affairs. So as I say, you can read further details in the bio, but I want to preserve the time, particularly with a late start, to move on and welcome Pat to come up to this front. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. And just while we were talking about sponsors again, I'd like to thank again HFW and ANZ for their key sponsorship, and also for all the other sponsors. There's a sign over there that has them all listed, but again, an important part of the conference that makes it all work. In terms of who was who in that thing, I noticed Sam Mitchell on the TV this morning, and God, what a great player he was. So I'll let you work out who the Hawthorn supporter is. My job is to talk today about the Code of Practice and the grains industry Code of Practice that we spent the last year undergoing a review. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that, and the self-regulatory framework that GTA's products and services in the end form, I think is the way of sort of saying it. It's a self-regulatory framework. Other industries don't have it, and I think we're very fortunate that we do, and it creates efficiencies, lowers costs, and so forth. And I think it's a model there that we should be proud of around that. One point I'd make with this framework as we talk about the trading standards, contracts, dispute resolution, and market access. But GTA, we're now starting to talk about. We've talked about training and development in the past, and we still do that, and it's still very important. But framing that in a little bit broader, in the sense of industry stewardship and capability. And the stewardship part is trying to bring the Code of Practice onto the front page of GTA and have that, because I think the Code of Practice, as we'll talk about, provides a lot of benefit and perhaps tangible and intangible value to the industry. So the review process that we went through, sort of have a look at the process there, the scope, and some of the benefits of the Code of Practice. So having an industry Code of Practice, we've got the benefits there about self-regulation and efficiency, so forth, promoting a proactive approach around the industry, and having a set of rules and processes and procedures that the industry can follow. And we talk about, it's not best practice, it's base practice, and hoping that people lift the bar above that base practice. And I know many in the industry do, and that's what we need to focus on there. And one of the things at the end of the day around this is trying to reduce risk around the supply chain. This slide here, we're talking about another benefit of the Code of Practice, if you like, is about confidence within the industry and confidence in the marketplace, and a market without confidence, or a product that people have no confidence in, is not very strong. So the way I sort of frame it, and this is about saying, you know, every transaction that happens in the grains industry involves risk. You can't avoid it, and it's priced into every single transaction. And there's a number of examples there: quality, supply chain, counterparty, very, very important, product safety and knowledge and about the risk. And the point being here, and you can see it in the slide, about creating confidence in the marketplace, and by having the confidence in the product, the process and the end product, reduces the risk that you're pricing into the transaction in case something goes wrong. And that's where the value is in doing that, creating confidence in our market. So the Code of Practice review that we undertook last year, and well, for all of this year as well, I should say, involved an engagement process. Typically at GTA, our process is about engaging with stakeholders, putting out the picture there about member updates, getting submissions saying what are the issues, what do we need to look at, and getting that input and working through that. And engaging with the government. We spent quite a lot of time working with the government on this and various departments and growers and consumers. We had an industry working group, and part of the reason there is to make sure that it's not just the people at GTA, but it's saying, you know, the industry working group, making sure that the process is on track, experts in the field, and also spread across the supply chain. So we had the growers represented, bulk handlers, receivers, exporters, transporters, you name it, all part of there, and the people there are listed on the slide. And I'd like to thank them for their work and contribution into the project as well. And all the input that we get from industry at GTA is volunteered by our members and by people in the industry, and that's very important and certainly appreciated. At the end of the day, the Code of Practice gives us a compliance framework, if you like, around those things: regulation, transparency, rules, standards, requirements, and there's always the law. You know, you can't contract outside of the law. The law is the law, and that's one thing that we need to also remember in our businesses and when we're contracting and so forth around that as well. So there it is. If you reach into your satchels, you've all got a copy of it. I'm sure it was great reading last night. Don't read it once, read it about 3 times, please, and have a look at it there. And those of you who are interested in subliminal messages, there's one there in terms of the Code of Practice, the front page being the beginning of the supply chain and the vessel at the end being the end of it around there. So I don't know whether you picked that up or not, but anyway, we'll talk about that. The key changes in the review there around, so what's changed, a lot of updating around just the text, and the last time we reviewed this, I think, was in about 2013-14, so it was time around that. We've had an extensive revision of the complaints handling process so that there is a loop around that, and saying if you see things in the industry that aren't right, you know, there is a process around doing that. And I'd say also around that with self-regulation comes self-responsibility. And with that as well comes the onus upon everybody, saying if you are seeing things out in the industry that really, call it, you know, if it rose to the front page of The Age, and that would be detrimental to the industry, it's in everybody's interest to make sure that we sort of strike out that type of behaviour in the industry and make sure that, you know, it's only going to take one bad apple to ruin it for a lot of people. So that's important there, and that's been revised. Chain of responsibility, we've done a lot of work on that as well, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And our technical guidelines have been updated, and we've created what we call a pathway program, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. There, probably one of the key changes, point number 7 there, about a code assessment program, which I think I might flip to in the next slide, but having a way of assessing people in terms of their understanding of the code. The Transport Code of Practice, which is a subset of the code, has also been extensively reviewed. And if you're interested or concerned, well, you should be interested and concerned actually about chain of responsibility and the impending changes in that legislation. We've done a lot of work on it, but have a read of that Transport Code of Practice, and if you follow that, then you're probably 90% of the way there in terms of your chain of responsibility obligations and issues. So the information's there. And please have a look at that because it is important. And with chain of responsibility, again, it's a piece of legislation. You can't avoid it. So you've got to engage in that as well. The code assessment program, so we've developed an online learning tool around it to demonstrate that people have registered in the code and participated in the code. And it's about developing an accreditation type of process around it, and what it gives industry participants, if you like, is a way of sort of demonstrating, putting it on your CV, say I'm accredited in the Australian Grains Industry Code of Practice. For industry employers, and who are our members as well, having an assessment program provides a structured professional development program in your business that enables you to sort of demonstrate that you're complying with the code. Because one of the things we say, my sort of thing, to be a GTA member, you need to be able to spell your name on a form, you need to pay your membership fees, and you need to adhere to the code of practice. So only 3 things. But how do you demonstrate that you're complying with that code of practice? Having your staff participate in the code assessment program is will be a very good first step around that. So the industry pathway programs and the code assessment program, we've sort of broken it into 4 streams, if you like, around that. The first being the code assessment around the industry code of practice, which is the book that you have, the transport code of practice, and then the technical guidelines that we have within the code of practice that provide more detail about specific things like truck cleaning, container packing, sampling, all those sorts of things, and having streams around there. So there'll be 5 separate streams in the code assessment program that you can go through. So if there's people within your business that, for example, may not be interested in grain assessment, or it may not be relevant, there's still other parts of the code that they can go and get assessed in, and get accreditation, if you like, around that, and demonstrate compliance with the code. That's what it looks like online. There's different modules there. You click on it. It's not that hard, and then you read it, and then pops a couple of questions. Excuse me. Around what you've just read. Pretty simple. It's almost like going back to school, but or like going through a port induction for those who've, say, been through a port. You sit there, you read it, and then you answer 4 questions, and which means you've got a 25% chance of getting it right the first time, and a 50% chance the second time. And if you don't get it right by the 5th time, then probably time to have a good look at yourself, I guess. Be that one there. So it's not hard. The point being, we'll be putting out some more information on this. There'll be a fact sheet on our website around the code assessment project, the release, and so that's really what I wanted to put out there, and saying, the code of practice is there, and we have started to close the loop about how do people comply with it. The first way is to get them to be assessed in the code of practice there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. So as I said, we'll just keep moving through the speakers, so I'd like to invite Richard Perkins up. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. And yeah, as Kevin said earlier, thanks to all those who showed up this morning. I know last night can be a big night for most, or so I've been told. So I'm here today to talk about maximising opportunities through technology, communication and collaboration. So just to set up my presentation, which will go for around 20 minutes, I'm going to start with a bit of an evolution of the supply chain, and I've used a few of these slides in the past, and I think it's a good way to set up the rest of the presentation. I'm going to look at 2 key opportunities, and I'm going to wrap it up at the end. So to kick things off, looking back pre-2008, I like to use this illustration to sort of educate those who probably weren't around back then, but also just to illustrate that, under this monopolised supply chain, there were some benefits. Each piece of the puzzle worked to a degree efficiently together under one entity. There were some downsides, but looking back, there were some benefits under this structure. But in 2008, it was deregulated, and there was a lot of jostling for position in the market. The pieces were thrown into, I suppose, a bit of disarray. You had traders popping up, new pool providers popping up, farmers out from the umbrella of the AWB pool, new exporters, you had brokers popping up, co-ops, packers, and private sites. So, immediately post-deregulation, there was probably a fragmented market. There was probably a misconception that if you're an exporter, you needed to overextend yourself down the supply chain and own the grower, with mixed results, particularly through the years of the very expensive auction system or export slots. And conversely, I think there was, well, our view at Market Check is there was a misconception that growers needed to overextend themselves up the supply chain and cut out the middleman and go direct to destination. So we've gone through this period of fragmentation. But look, immediately post-deregulation, it sort of reminds me of this picture. It had a lot of potential but lacked direction. So where are we now? Our view, I think most of you would agree, you've got exporters looking to collaborate more with domestic consumers, whether it's flour millers or feed millers. You've got pools popping up, and they're more willing to reach out to storage providers or transport operators, whether it's rail or road, to work in with bulk handlers to try and squeeze some efficiencies out of the supply chain. You've got farmers going direct to port. You've got obviously a lot more advisors, given that the AWB monopoly was removed. And you've got a lot of private sites and packers popping up. So the take-home, I suppose, is there is more collaboration. I think it is for the better. What do we think the future could hold? We're not going to move back to a monopolistic market, but we think there could be more of a collaborative commercial collaboration where you've got all the pieces of that supply chain working in a bit more harmony to squeeze out as much efficiency as we can throughout the supply chain. So on to the opportunities. I'm going to talk about firstly the global market and our position and our share of that global market and the opportunities there, leveraging communication and new technology, and then I'm going to talk about the supply chain. So to kick things off, the UN released a report late in 2017 that stated by 2030 we'd grow the population by about 1 billion people. I think most of you are aware of this. Most of the growth is expected to be in Africa. By 2027, Sudan is meant to be a larger population than the US. By 2028, India is going to be a bigger population than China. But we can't escape the fact that over 50% of the population is going to be in Asia, and over 30% of the population will be in 2 countries, which is China and India. Even more important is a report that was released earlier this year, stated that 88% of the next billion entrants into the middle class are all going to be in Asia. Why is that important to us? We've looked at the 5-year average wheat exports, 85% of that goes to Asia. So it's no secret that the opportunity is huge for us on the back of this growth, particularly in our backyard. What effects is it having on the domestic market? Looking at March ABS statistics, farm gate value for total agricultural output, you're seeing a steady incline into 2008 and probably even ramping up post-2008. And even more importantly, looking at wheat on the right-hand axis, it's not without some volatility, but ultimately the trend is up for wheat, which is good for farmers. But it's not without, as I said, its production variability year to year. But as we know, in a year like this, if you can get a crop, your gross margins, if you're a farmer, could be bigger than 2016-17 when you were getting quite big yields, but the flat price was much lower. So looking at the Asian market, Southeast and Eastern Asia is still our #1 destination. But our market share is diminishing. And I just want to highlight this by looking at a couple of key figures. I want to look at the 5-year average wheat imports into Southeast and Eastern Asia between 2008 and 2013, compared to the 5-year average wheat imports into Southeast and Eastern Asia between 2013 and 2018. So first of all, that 5-year average 10 years ago was 11.3 million tonnes from Australia, 17.6 from the rest of the world. And then you fast forward it, we are basically unchanged. So we've seen 10 million tonnes or 10.5 million tonnes of growth into this destination, and we haven't really participated in any of it. And as a result, our market share has dropped over the last 10 years about 9%. So yes, there's growth in Asia, and yes, there will continue to be growth in Asia, but we can't sit back and relax. It's becoming more and more a price-driven market and less a quality-driven market. We can't sit back and rely on our traditional quality premium to capture these markets. It's no longer inelastic demand for Australian wheat. And I suppose just to continue with the theme of the week, the big bear has awoken. And this just doesn't represent Russia, this represents Ukraine, this represents Argentina. The eagle, the US, is in the wind, and as Australians, now we can't sit back and relax. So how are we going to regain that premium, that legitimate quality premium, not just relying on a crop that's well below average to make sure we're getting $30, $40 a tonne premiums into Indonesia, which we currently are, because not everyone can participate in that. Differentiation is an important factor. Listening to the Bunge presentation yesterday, it was all about how flour millers in Indonesia and Southeast Asia in general are trying to differentiate themselves. And in Australia, we're no different. We need to differentiate ourselves. How can we do that? We feel traceability and provenance is important. It's a tool, whether that's through better on-farm quality management systems or digitising the supply chain. Without a doubt, if we can franchise some wheat from different regions and go into certain destinations that are willing to pay even a few dollars for that premium, that is one way of clawing back a quality premium that is diminishing. At Market Check, we're big on innovative marketing. Our clients are farmers. We're trying to help them meet the needs of the supply chain. I think there's probably a misconception that the wheat export program's front-end loaded when it's not. You look at the 10-year average export, it's typically between March and May where you're seeing a big chunk of the exports go out the door. So when farmers are harvesting it through November and December, we don't want them selling all of it at once. So we're trying to innovate the way they bring grain to market. We feel that they can add a few more dollars in that supply chain post-harvest. Obviously Market Check is no secret. We run pools. It's a way of combining the grain to lower execution fees on behalf of growers. But what we really do is managed programs is just a portion of the strategy that we advocate to growers. It's a mix of cash selling, of pools, of puts. Ultimately, our goal is to help the grower sell when the market needs it, put a few dollars in their pocket, but also create some more efficiencies in the supply chain. Moving on to the supply chain. So this is a picture of the Australian rail network. Sorry, this one is. I can't take credit for that. I stole that from Andrew Freeth, who used to work at Market Check. He's now a Nuffield scholar, he's a member of Grower Co. He's helped me out with a few ideas on these slides, but I'll go through it. Most people know that the supply chain in Australia is very fragmented. AGIC released a report that stated that 30% of producers' costs are made up of the supply chain. A big reason is the production volatility. If you're a rail operator, you need to smooth out your returns. You can't be cutthroat prices year in, year out. There's lower efficiency, whether it's 16 to 19 tonne axle weights or 21 to 24 going in a state compared to, say, North America where it's 24, 25 and upwards. You've also got a lack of competition in different states. And ultimately, the result is that before we're even out of the gate, we're $29 a tonne behind the world's biggest wheat exporter. So we're already at a significant disadvantage before we even rip the crop off and put it in the bin. So we just feel that there's a huge opportunity here to squeeze a few more dollars out of the supply chain. How do we think we can do this? We feel collaboration is probably most important above communication and new technology. They are tools. New technology will definitely help, whether it's digitising the supply chain, whether it's APIs linking in with each other, whether it's more transparent communication between the different participants in the supply chain. But we want to compete as a nation and an industry. We don't want to compete as individuals. Farmers don't want to be competing against each other. I don't think we want to be competing against each other. We need to regain some of that premium into Asia because that is the prize, ultimately, and it's huge. Who are the drivers? Well, as I said, there are tools out there that can help us to get to where we need to be. There are software developers here. It's a big theme. Every time I go to a conference, it's all about ag tech. And it is great. It is a buzzword, but it is great. But we need to take baby steps, and we need to implement these tools. We need to start the change. So the drivers are the market checks of the world, the exporters of the world, the people in the supply chain operating, handling grain, and ultimately we need to get the big guys on board. I mean, they're the three biggest supply chain operators in Australia, so we need them to adopt some of this technology and work in with us at the origination level or across the supply chain. But there needs to be people driving it. We can't just rely on the developers of these tools for the market to adopt it. Now, I've talked a bit about collaboration. I talked about it last year, and some people said, oh, can you give me an example? And I wanted to use an example in the coal industry. So the Hunter Valley Coal Chain Coordination was started in the early 2000s. Now it's made up of 30 coal mines in the Hunter Valley, owned by 11 operators. And their ultimate goal was to lower supply chain costs to the Port of Newcastle. Now, three of the biggest players in that collaboration were three massive global competitors, BHP, Rio Tinto and Glencore. But they came together and they reduced supply chain costs by around $10 a tonne. And I think they're doing about 160 million tonnes of coal through the Newcastle ports now. So you're looking at $1.6 billion savings per year. But the point is, there was collaboration through this initiative between 11 operators, but three massive global traditional competitors. So it can be done. But the biggest difference, I suppose, between coal and grain is the coal was much easier. It was being originated from 31 coal depositories operated by 11 participants. So the difference is you've got, what, 15, 16, 17,000 farmers in Australia. It's very different. You've got farmers selling for different reasons at different times of the year. So it's much harder to be originating those sorts of volumes when you need to get it through one supply chain. We think collaborative grain marking can play a part in helping get the volumes to the market when it's needed. Just want to use a bit of a diagram. So you've got many, many different growers selling for many, many different reasons. And I'm going to use a vessel, but this could be applied to a domestic market as well. And they're all selling for different reasons. Ultimately, the goal is to be getting vessels out the door and participating into this growth in Asia. But if exporters can't buy the grain when they need it, it increases their cost of accumulation because they've got to either buy it out the curve or buy it early or fill it when they don't really need to fill it and pay up for it. So we feel that at a grower level, and we're seeing it at Market Check, there is more of a willingness to want to collaborate together to fill trains or to fill vessels so that we can more readily meet the needs of the supply chain. So again, we've got the big bear here, barking at us, threatening us, taking our market share into Asia, but I think ultimately we need to collaborate and put on the gloves. Just to draw again on the themes of the week. So just to wrap things up, collaboration, to our mind, is the key. Communication and technology are tools to get us there. We've got many, many different growers that wanting to sell for different reasons at different times of the year. And we've got this massive growing market globally. But ultimately, collaboration is going to help. So, at Market Check, we are already interfacing the grower. We've started this change, and we implore you, if you want to join us, reach out to us. But we just feel through collaborating through the supply chain and adopting these new technologies, making communication more transparent, we can actually squeeze some efficiency out of the supply chain and regain some of that premium into Southeast and Eastern Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I'm sure that will generate a lot of questions later on, so just hold them for a moment longer. So I don't know whether you've put the dots together yet around the three speakers, because I'm not going to tell you the answers. You'll need to do that yourself. But the final speaker I'd like to invite up is Tim Fitzgerald. And I mentioned that we had a combined 65 years experience, and Tim makes up 32 years of experience within his industry. So
Cheers. I'll probably lay claim to the smuggling of the 2 kilos of cocaine early so that I don't just take away from the fellow presenters here. It was part of our training program for our detector dogs at Melbourne Airport. So back in the day, we don't do it anymore, but I was asked to body pack a couple of kilos of coke from Sydney down to Melbourne and test the dogs. But fair to say, I was a little nervous on the plane on the way down, and no way was I going to sleep. So, yeah. But thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. It's a great opportunity on our behalf, so Department of Home Affairs and the Australian Border Force, to give you a bit of background, I suppose, on one of our key programs going forward, being the Australian Trusted Trader program, and outline some of the benefits associated with that program for industries such as yourself. And I'll quote some figures that you'll probably be well aware of and know a lot better than I do, but the grain industry is a substantial contributor to Australia's economy, with more than 75% of production exported nationally. It created $14.6 billion in export revenue in the 2016-17 financial year, and is obviously a key contributor to Australia's growth. Tellingly, wheat alone is our 9th top export, representing 1.6% of Australia's trade overall. And certainly Australian trade is currently at an all-time high as global demand continues to increase at unprecedented levels. The Department of Home Affairs recognises that the important part that competitive markets plays in that for our exporters, and it's essential for continued prosperity as we go forward. We also appreciate that strong national security enhances trade and protects investment, allowing businesses to reap benefits of globalisation. Part of that, a secure border is a prerequisite for trade confidence, and security and facilitation are bound together as complementary imperatives of a robust customs system. You might be wondering about Home Affairs portfolio and how it's different to previous arrangements. We've only been in existence for a little while now. Up until 20 December last year, we were dealing with 21st century challenges in somewhat antiquated manner. Our security functions of state were broken up and dispersed across a number of departments and agencies. Many did not have a primary focus on domestic security and law enforcement. Fair to say that at times there was probably a lack of coordination and duplication of work, and the ability to respond to the threat environment was constrained. And as we know too well, malicious groups and individuals are highly adept and looking to find holes and exploit our weaknesses as we go forward. So it was in the government's view that the status quo was no longer enough. If the threats are evolving, so must we. And we actually want to be ahead of the threats and work before them. And to protect and secure Australia in the 21st century, we have to increasingly operate along the border continuum. And along the border continuum, we'll undertake our activities before the border, at the border, and after the border. And that means operating increasingly in a collaborative manner with a lot of our cohorts and partners at both a national and international level. There's 5 independent agencies within the Department of Home Affairs portfolio. So we start with the Australian Border Force, the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, the Australian Federal Police, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, and the Australian Transaction Reports and Analysis Centre. Each has its own head who reports to the Cabinet Minister. To give you a taste of some of the numbers that all of these agencies have been dealing with in the 2016-17 financial year, the Australian Border Force processed more than 43 million air and sea travellers last year. We risk assessed more than 42 million air cargo and 3 million sea cargo consignments, and inspected more than 58 million international mail consignments. More than 14.6 million passengers used automated departure smart gates at our international airports, averaging around 40,000 people a day. These gates use the biometrics to identify travellers and eliminate the need for you actually to present a passport when you're travelling through our airports. And we're looking to have around 90% of the travelling public use these smart gates by 2020. The Australian Federal Police and the Australian Border Force last year seized over 15 tonne of illicit narcotics and precursors at our borders and as part of investigations across the country. And the Federal Police also received some 10,000 reports of child exploitation material, some of which contained hundreds of thousands of images. So as you can see from that, they're huge numbers and there's copious amounts of data going forward. and it won't come as a surprise. In government, we have finite human and financial resources. It's impractical, unaffordable, and unrealistic to continue to try and manage our increasing volumes of data or transactions with additional people undertaking manual, analytical or transactional tasks. These volumes will continue to increase, and we've already reached the point where we're at the mercy of the law of diminishing returns. So Home Affairs affords us with the new opportunities for collaborations to manage the border, opportunities to synergise capabilities and pool resources across the portfolio. Just a couple of the initiatives that we're looking forward to in the coming 12 months. In the 2018-19 budget, the department was allocated $10.5 million for trade modernisation, with a key feature being a single window. This initiative will transform how industry interacts with the government. A single window will provide a secure digital interface between government and industry as a single data touchpoint for Australian businesses to meet all international trade regulatory requirements. It will eliminate the need for traders to lodge duplicate trade-related documentation with multiple government agencies, which I'm sure will be a relief to a lot of people in this room, instead of having to send the same document to maybe half a dozen government departments. We're looking to have that single window opportunity where one document goes to all departments and you don't have to submit it across the board. At its most advanced, a single window would provide a central location for cross-border traders to submit regulatory documents like customs declaration, trading invoices, rather than having to deal with those multiple government organisations. Obviously, the benefits include reducing complexity within the trade environment, greater visibility of supply chains, enabling improved compliance and risk assessment. Thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about a program that's been in place for around 2 years now. But as international supply chains become increasingly complex and criminal syndicates continue to endeavour to find vulnerabilities within them, the Australian Trusted Trader program offers a partnership between business and government to drive economic benefits and enhance security. Australian Trusted Trader enables Australian Border Force to create two flows of trade, one that is known and trusted and one that is unknown and potentially high risk. It works by accrediting businesses which have compliant trade practices and a secure supply chain. What this allows us as the Australian Border Force to do is to focus intelligence to better target high risk, unknown or illegitimate traders, and thus improving the flow of legitimate trade across the border and Australia's security at the same time. Accordingly, if you're a trusted trader, you will have faster access to market and a competitive edge. Once a business becomes an accredited trusted trader, it can access a range of tangible financial and time-saving benefits, as well as simplified customs processes. Trusted Trader accreditation is a market distinction. It signals that we have independently accredited a business against international supply chain security and trade compliance standards. Just to give you some of the ideas, or a bit of an idea of some of the benefits that are currently in place if you're a Trusted Trader member, you get access to a dedicated Australian Border Force account manager. You get priority treatment of goods when cargo imports of Trusted Traders may be subject to fewer interventions and prioritised if physical cargo examination is required. Priority trade services when requesting duty drawbacks, refunds, advance rulings on tariff, valuation and origin. Opportunity to consolidate cargo clearance arrangements, streamlining and reducing import declaration procedures, access to monthly cargo reports on all goods imported and exported under the Trusted Traders ABN, a seat at the table to work in partnership with the Home Affairs and the ABF directly, streamlined process when applying for sponsorship accreditation for the temporary skills shortage visa, streamlined process when applying for an APEC business travel card, licence to use the ATT logo, trade facilitation benefits in export markets through mutual recognition arrangements. With that in mind, I'll probably outline three of the key benefits of Trusted Traders, benefits which will be particular interest to exporters such as yourselves. First is the mutual recognition arrangement, or MRA. What these are arrangements as part of a trade facilitation strategy and result in Australian exporters receiving differentiated border treatment in signatory countries. This means delivering to markets faster in those countries. And we're already seeing some evidence of that play at the moment. Singapore and Canada recently joined a growing list of countries to have signed an MRA with Australia that includes New Zealand, the Republic of Korea, Hong Kong and China, which together are worth $892 million to the Australian economy. The seamless trade model established under these MRAs allows Australian trusted trader members unprecedented access to trade facilitation benefits and reduced costs, and increases their access to global markets. In short, those countries that have committed to the Australian trusted trader benefit will receive a lighter touch from our counterpart customs agencies in those countries that we've signed those MRAs with, not just reducing delays but improving certainty, ultimately resulting in faster product to market. These arrangements improve Australia's international trade competitiveness, contribute to economic growth, job creation and investment in the national economy. To access the benefit under these MRAs, you do need to be an accredited trusted trader. The second benefit that I think is particularly relevant is around the access to an Australian Border Force account manager. When you become a trusted trader, you will have direct access to an Australian Border Force officer who will act as your account manager. Your account manager can assist you with border-related queries and issue your businesses and any issues your businesses might be experiencing. I was recently speaking with Peter Wilson, I think he's out here somewhere, from AGIC Foods Australia, who were actually the first grain exporter to become an accredited trusted trader. And Peter was telling me about a recent incident where their cargo, which was headed to Syria, was red flagged, and therefore it was being held at port. It was their account manager that realised that their particular goods were being held, contacted Peter and the team, and as a result of their interaction was able to have that cargo released and on its way within a day. Peter firmly believed that without their account manager's help, being that direct access to someone inside the ABF, their cargo would have been held at port for a significant period, costing them a lot of time and obviously money in the long run. And finally, the department's also working closely with New Zealand Customs to develop the secure train lane concept, which allows our respective agencies to share trade data sourced directly from exporters and their service providers. The secure trade lane would be available to trusted traders that use trusted service providers throughout their supply chains and trade with countries with which Australia has a MRA. For these trusted traders, it would use the consignment information necessary to make a border clearance decision, and subsequent regulatory processes and import clearances would be faster. These are just some of the examples, I suppose, of trade facilitation and the benefits of being a trusted trader. The mutual benefits of a strong and efficient trusted trader program are very clear, and more businesses are getting on board every day. The application process to become a trusted trader is not long or arduous. We've streamlined it with an online portal with an accreditation form based on a simple yes or no style questionnaire. There's also a companion guide which outlines all the application questions and the information you need to supply. We've got an ABF stand out the front, specifically dedicated to trusted trader, that I encourage people, if you're interested in, to get more information, please visit the stand. At the moment, our accredited trusted traders represent around $54.5 billion of two-way trade, and the number of accredited trusted traders continues to grow regularly. Home Affairs, we're working with industry and government to expand the trusted trader membership, and we're always looking to bring on new benefits as we go forward. We do have an ambitious plan to grow trusted trader to around 1,000 trusted traders by 2020. Our membership's doubled over the last 12 months, and we've introduced in the last 12 months, I think associated with more people coming on board, 7 new benefits as we've gone forward. I think that the growth in this area of trusted trader demonstrates that traders want the program's benefits and the competitive edge it provides in global markets. From our perspective, as trusted trader makes an important contribution to compliance and enforcement. What it does is it enables us as ABF to be able to focus our efforts and our limited staff on what we consider to be high risk or unknown risk, traders that we don't know a lot about. The part of the benefits for us is we will get to know trusted traders, and we can do that specifically. We can trust trusted traders, so you'll have a lot lighter touch at the border. Your goods are processed a lot quicker. Industry engagement's a crucial element of our strategic direction and development of Australian trusted trader. We'll continue to partner with industry to modernise and innovate in our efforts to secure and facilitate trade. If you're not yet a trusted trader, hopefully I can encourage you to apply. We'll be around. As I said, we've got a stand out the front, and thank you for your time today. Cheers.
Thank you, Tim. So we had a late start, and we're going to be squeezed on questions, but I'm sure there's plenty out there. And so in the next 5 minutes, I want you to get in there and let's field some questions for our excellent range of speakers here to speak. So first, introduce yourselves when you have a question. Right. Geez, I was almost going to ask one.
Thank you. It's Bob White from Bell Commodities. Question for Richard there. You talked about 15,000, 16,000 odd farmers in Australia, and you're comparing the situation to Russia. Can you comment on how many individual farms there might be there and how they managed to get their collaboration and transport chain organised?
Yeah, good question. Look, our experience with Russia, mine personally, is quite light, although we sent 2 of our market check people over to Russia, and they did a Russian-Ukrainian crop tour, visited a lot of farmers earlier this year. State-owned transport, roads are very, very ordinary in terms of corruption. They've come a long way, much further than Ukraine. A lot of expat farmers that have really reduced the cost of production. Yeah, but I suppose most of you who have dealt in the trade would know that most of the grain comes from the southern parts of Russia, and it's obviously much harder to get into the areas that are further north, further away from the ports. But I think they can only become more efficient. And I think the take home for us early in the year is in terms of planting more area or increasing yields is limited, but in terms of reducing their cost of production, there's a lot of scope for that. That's probably all the knowledge I have on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Questions?
I actually have a question. A question for Tim. In terms of the trusted trader process, is that within scope to incorporate the Department of Agricultural processing requirements?
That's certainly one of the areas that we're looking at. At the moment, the program is managed by Department of Home Affairs and the Australian Border Force, but broadly, I'd like to take it so that it's a whole-of-government program, so that benefits that I've outlined, we can start to include some of those around agriculture, permits associated with Department of Defence, definitely, without a doubt. And to that end, last week we had a bit of a workshop looking at benefits in agriculture in the room, and they're engaged.
Okay. Any other questions? Sorry? Oh, sorry.
Peter Wilson, AGT Foods. I guess I've got to ask the question, did the dogs find the cocaine, Tim?
Yeah, they did actually. I had about 6 dogs run over the top of me.
Fair enough. Any other questions? All right. It's probably not really a question, but one of my learnings from the three speakers this morning, in my side of the supply chain, where we're bringing forward a whole range of new plant traits and particularly in using what I'll call modern plant breeding techniques, and at the moment they are associated with each trait individually. A comprehensive stewardship and compliance management program. And the risk that's developing is that for the grain growers out there, that they'll have multiple programs, effectively all slightly different, but really shouldn't be. What are the opportunities among the three speakers to work with the commercial sector to coordinate and bring those programs under one umbrella, so the grain growers are not having to report and comply with multiple individual programs? maybe Pat can give it a first go.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and the idea of reducing duplication and so forth across some of those issues and programs is pretty important. And I'm aware that, say, for example, within the canola industry and around the registration process for growers producing canola that's going to end up in Europe, and the on-farm auditing process. And I know the canola industry and AOF are looking at a project there around simplifying that, and saying rather than a grower having to, if he sold to 3 different traders, have 3 different forms, 3 different audits, 3 different everything, bring that into one area and try and consolidate that for industry. And I think that's a real, a good example, in fact, of the way industry has evolved, and to Richard's point about collaboration and working together, it's a fantastic example. And 5-10 years ago, wouldn't have happened today. It's very, very live.
Yeah. So Richard, from a...
Yeah, probably not much more to add. I think, yeah, definitely some collaboration working together, but also more cloud-based quality management technology, so you don't have so much duplication. You've got systems talking together, so it's much more streamlined. But yeah, couldn't add much more to that.
Yeah, and opportunity across the public sector, Tim?
Yeah, and part of the program, Trusted Trader, is working with industry as well. You know, the whole goal of it from your perspective is to reduce red tape. Like I suggest, get your goods to market quicker and make things easier. So whether that's through a whole of government approach, we work very closely with industry in developing benefits and those sorts of things as part of the program. It's a key part of it.
Okay, thank you. I'll have to pull it up there, but the speakers will be around during the course of the day, so please track them down. In lieu of speaker gifts, as you're aware, we're supporting the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and some of the previous chairs have shared some statistics, so I'll just share a few more. We're all probably familiar with the fact it's the largest aeromedical organisation in the world, but as a marketing person myself, I was intrigued with this. It services an area of 7.69 million hectares. That's quite a territory. They're celebrating 90 years, national fleet of 69 planes, and in terms of customer contact, they are servicing someone every 2 minutes every day, with over 330,000 patient contacts last year. So for any customer service orientated as we all are, that's one hell of an achievement. So just want to acknowledge the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and now as we go to break, Grain Brokers Australia, who have a stand just outside the door there, are hosting morning tea. So thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully those who didn't make this session will get over their hangover and be there after morning tea. Thank you.